Hey, welcome back to the Field and Faith podcast with me as always.
What's up? Luke here.
And, it's been an interesting few weeks. A lot of changes have kind of gone around. Luke has been on the roll, meeting with people from all different walks of life. And with that being said, though, there's always that idea that, it's hard to keep that energy level up. It's hard to keep going at a extended pace. It's like running a marathon. You got to kind of choose a pace and not know when to sprint, know when to hold. I think that's like one of the sayings, like know when to hold them, know when to fold them. I think is the way.
Know when to hold them.
Yeah.
That's the most annoying song ever. But
yeah, it definitely is not a classic, but it obviously rang true because you started singing it. But we're going to go into the idea of, I think where a lot of guys are at right now is this complacency of being lukewarm, not having much passion, not having much drive, and kind of what that's doing to it. And we just decided to talk about this because, I saw a video the other day and it was interesting with all the talks about civil war or us going to war, or what the UK has done, which is basically gone into conscription with their civilians and asked them to prepare for war, where one guy just said, bring it. There's enough of us who are in our 30s who have just been complacent. We haven't been living for much lately, and that would give men something to go out and live for, just to have a little bit of excitement for a little bit of time. And it's kind of where we're at in the world.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you actually say that because I think that's the desire for every man, is to be a hero in something, right? And we've always grown up playing guns and cowboys and Indians and every game of modern warfare and Call of Duty and stuff. We want to be a hero. We want to fight the fight, and we have it. It's innately in us to be a fighter of some aspect. And it's now we live in a society where it's just swipe your life away, watch another funny video, because what else are you going to do? Oh, you got to go engage with somebody, and engaging with somebody's hard. So let's just be meh, because it's hard to do all that stuff, especially when you don't have the fire in you to be like, dude, I remember the first time, I'll just bring up the story because it's interesting. I remember going and watching Troy in theaters when it came out. Oh, yeah. Dude, I love historical movies, right? And that's, who knows how accurate that one is, but Braveheart has always been one of my probably top 3 favorite movies. And then going to see Troy, I walked out of that movie, was okay, I'm going to buy a sword and I'm going to start fighting people. This needs to happen right now, because it was just so intense and crazy. And I feel like I'm in the wrong time period. I grew up in the wrong place in the wrong time, because I feel like I was supposed to be a sword fighter or something back in the day. But that movie, dude, was just so awe-inspiring of a guy that, was fighting for himself for so long because he just wanted the fight and wanted the recognition. And that's what we all want. But then then he kind of changes and fights for something different. But at the same time, he's still being that hero,
Yeah. Well, I think one of the famous lines from that is when Brad Pitt, who plays Achilles, is kind of challenging the king. And it's kind of why do you do this? And he goes, that's why no one will remember your name. And he's just like it's the actions that we do within our lives that what men are remembered for. And then, of course, from that, which is Homer's Odyssey, Homer's the Iliad. Then you have Alexander the Great, who literally slept with that story underneath his bed. That's what he read every single night, because Achilles was his hero. And his whole thing was, I'm going to do as much as I possibly can in my life to the greatest extent, so that I can be remembered in the same lines as Achilles is remembered for Homer's the Iliad. And of course, there's probably not anyone who has ever studied history who doesn't know who Alexander the Great is, because of his military tactics, because of what he had done. And he wasn't a guy who sat around. I mean, he had the fastest growing empire, maybe outside of Attila the Hun or Genghis Khan, but those guys were all riding on horseback. So
yeah, and you don't get a name with the Great in it unless you're doing something pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
That's just not a name that people just freely give out.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I couldn't name a military general today.
No.
Not that we couldn't, but obviously I can go back into World War II and I can name for you some military generals, but again, it's been sitting around and we haven't been doing anything to where there hasn't been this like great conflict. And so it's been interesting to kind of watch the world like without an enemy to fight, we're literally just fighting ourselves. And for the last few years, I think that has rung true in the sense of, there isn't, this enemy, whereas like World War II, we had Nazi Germany, we had the Japanese, but now, and then we had the Cold War, and now it's just like, well, terrorism. But when in the last 2 years has there been the war on terror? There hasn't been. And so now it's just like been kind of sitting back. And within that time frame, we've had probably the most unrest here in America, just because there hasn't been a unifying factor of overseas or an enemy. And I think it's also true within our lives. If we're not working towards something, or if we're not like fighting and battling something, there is that complacency of lukewarmness that begins to develop. And I think the devil will work at us. Either he's going to attack us or he's going to completely leave us alone when we're not striving towards anything. We're not trying to get close to God. We're not trying to get close to anything in our relationships. And it's just completely absolved us of desire. And so the more that we can become in these lukewarm states, the less the devil's got to do to keep us away from Christ.
For real. Like, look at 2020, for instance. Like, we've always had, right, Democrats, Republicans, independent, whatever, but it was never anything big. 2020 hits, the world breaks out, people have something to fight for all of a sudden out of nowhere. You're fighting over toilet paper, you're fighting over your political position. Look at the war that it erupted from that, right? Yeah, COVID brought out crazies in people and all that kind of stuff, but like, I think it brings out that aspect of like, dude, people wanted something to fight for, something they believed in, because they felt it was a time, because the world was crashing, that it was their time to stand up and fight. They chose the wrong things to fight for, but it's in us to do that. And if we don't fight for it, we're just getting fought over and losing a fight.
Oh, totally. And, I think it just goes into more and more. I think society has found more things to blame. And I think the big target of blame is straight males.
Oh,
masculinity.
I see you over there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that has become like a target. We live in an age or a society where, the idea of gender has been a major issue with young people. And the conversation of it is, what is your sexuality? I mean, it used to be like gay, straight, lesbian, bisexual. And now it's like, I can't even keep up with the list any longer. And what people are, binary, non-binary. I mean, there's so many terms. I've just like checked out and gone into like the dark zone of it, just because I don't want to engage with it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to like even have a part of that, because it doesn't concern me. What somebody else does with their own life is their issues and their problems. But I think all of us are going to have to answer to Christ in some way or another at some point. Obviously, at the end of our lives, we're definitely going to have to answer for what we did and what we didn't do here on earth. And hopefully, as much as I try to surrender my life over to Christ, like, there'll be an answer for what I've done, and there'll be an answer for what they've done, good, bad, or indifferent. But man, there's too many times I'm like, I need something else. And, recently, because of all the talk, I did purchase a new firearm. And, we put in for elk. So I was like, okay, let's see if I can kill two birds with one stone here. So I like looked up ammo and like, okay, what can take down a deer or an elk? And then also, what can also dub as an assault rifle? And so I did. I got an Aero Precision M5 and decked it all out. I think at the end of the day, it's coming in around $2,000. And I'm excited.
I'm excited for you, because I think, it's just like, it's like getting your first knife as a kid, like getting a gun as an adult. It's just like something fun that you're going to use for multiple things. It's such a step up as a man, I feel like, right? It's just like buying your first house, buying a gun is just, it's putting you in your place of where you belong as a man. And like, not only are you able to use this for providing food for your family, you can have that for protection for your home. You can also use it as a hobby and a place of enjoyment that actually makes you feel good. You know what I mean? So it's just like, you're doing something actually good for yourself. It's also an investment. It costs a lot of money, but at the same time, guns are as good as gold.
Yeah, the value's not going down. Like I looked at it, I was like, well, the money could be sitting in my savings account, and every single day it becomes less and less valuable just because of inflation. Or what I could end up doing is like putting it into something that I was telling my students this. I was like, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Bravo. Proud of you. No, so hopefully you get drawn for elk so we can use it.
Yeah. I really want that. Well, even if that, like the place that we bought it at, I mean, you came in there with me and you looked at the gun. We went over and we talked to the guys, and they were awesome, man. And they were telling us about these different ranches and everything like that. And you ended up reaching out to one this week, didn't you?
Yeah, we heard back, and they work with nonprofits, and they do some discounts for raffles and stuff for us. So
what was the name of the ranch?
Blue Rooster.
Blue Rooster.
Yeah, I'm excited to go check it out.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing a raffle at
the Arizona Game and Fish Expo, I believe, with said hunts.
When are we going to be doing the Arizona Game and Fish?
It's March 22nd, 23rd, 24th.
It's Saturday.
Yeah,
I think it's the
23rd is for sure. It's 2 days, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll be out there doing that raffle for the Arizona Game and Fish Expo, and
yeah, you have an opportunity to either hunt a hog or a ram, and I mean that's pretty awesome. You don't need a hunting license. You go on this private ranch, and it's kind of like a free for all where you just kind of walk around. You have guys that'll teach you and show you how to do stuff, and like to be able to go and hunt and do that kind of stuff, and not have to put in a lottery, and not have to wait 5 to 10 years to get drawn for something, and then you leave with a cool mount. Like, get your skull mounted if you want to do that, or if you want to pay for the extra stuff, you can do that. And then you have meat and all that kind of stuff, experience, whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's pretty awesome for what it is.
Yeah.
It's probably cheaper than actually, like, I've spent thousands of dollars over my lifetime of missed hunts, failed hunts, putting in for draws, gas, scouts, all that stuff. Like, this is probably substantially cheaper. Even though it doesn't look like it on paper, in reality, it's probably way cheaper than what I've done.
And so economically, we are doing the math on a lot of different things. And like, what's interesting is like, I didn't really realize these things existed. Like I figured that would be like more of an Arkansas thing, but obviously probably those guys are like, hey, let's go out to Arizona. And they bring in like a whole bunch of animals from Colorado, from the Midwest, and stuff like that. And it's kind of like a pick and shoot type thing. And I'm excited to go and check it out here in the future. Because they also have like a ranch where you can like rent out bunk rooms and stuff like that, for a guy's weekend or something like that. 1 or 2 people go out and shoot, where everybody else kind of can go out and hang out, even if they want to go into it. And like, you're going to get enough meat. Quarter the hog out, quarter the bison out. I mean, they've got crazy prices, because I know one day we're going to have to save up, because I know the bison, how many people will get drawn in Arizona for the bison?
It's like 10 to 15 per year, and it's a once in a lifetime, and I have like 12 bonus points saved up just for that, and I put in for it every year and don't get drawn, but it's a bucket list for me. So,
and going in and looking at the bison, and it's like 1 week, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So you have to figure out where they are and then spend that entire week trying to go after them. Whereas this place has them on the ranch.
Yeah, and it's not like a couple acres. It's like 1,000+ acres. So and these are all like free range animals. They're not in pens and they just let them out and go, all right, you shoot it. These are like free range animals on a piece of property. It's all fenced in. So
we're lucky that we talked to these guys, and over at Shea and the 51 over there, where it was a little gun shop. I just walked into it because my wife was looking for fish, and I was like, oh, go look at fish. There's a gun store over here. And then I was just browsing, and I was like, oh, what is that? And lo and behold, that's the gun that I ended up making a purchase on, because, I think there's so many people in the industry, gun sales and stuff like that, just genuinely have more of a passion for like manliness things, going out hiking, going out doing the things that I think kind of makes a man's spirit come alive. And there's so many things out here like in the city that just kind of quelch that. There isn't the work hard to come home, go feed some animals, go do some stuff that you would back in the day of the ranch lifestyle, or the pioneer style. Now it's like come home, heat something up in the microwave, and watch some TV, go to bed, and do it all over again. Which is it's life draining. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah, look at over the past 200 years of the cycle of men. Like, you went out and you hunted for your food and you farmed and you did this stuff and you were the provider. And like, I'm not saying the lifestyle was perfect. Like, you came home and your wife and children were like excited to see you. And a lot of times for guys, like, I'm lucky that I have a wife that loves me and cares when I come home, and my kids, especially my youngest, like, so excited when I walk through the door. And that is the most life-giving thing that I could possibly have. But the reality is, it's not like that anymore. Guys go to work and they are beaten up all day long, and then they come home and they walk into chaos. Like, just talked to a buddy the other day. He was out of town for a couple of days and he came home and it's just, his world was turned upside down. And I remember that too when I was traveling. Like, you come home and it's just like everybody's screaming and fighting and there's just chaos in the house, and you walk into this like, dude, I just had 3 days of hell dealing with work, and now I'm rolling into this. Like, yeah, I would love to be praised and worshiped in that sense of like, I'm the dad and I'm the father and the provider, but it's like, now I'm just stuck in this chaos, and it's just like the only thing that'll make me happy right now, because I can't go out and do stuff with my friends. I can't go shoot a gun. I can't go this all the time. I had to sit in this and I have to deal with this, and this sucks. And by the end of the night, you're so exhausted of having to deal with all this crap nonstop that the only thing you have left in you is just swipe your life away, which has been so hard. Like, even myself, like, I get stuck doing it. Like, I would love to play video games still, but I know if I do that, it's going to take away from everything else. And I'm like, I'm trying to eat better, and I'm trying to hike more, and I'm starting to work out now, which is stupid and awesome at the same time. But the reality is like, dude, okay, each one of these things takes so much time. Plus I have to do this and I have to do this. And now I'm meeting with guys and mentoring and doing all this other stuff. And I'm like, okay, where's my passion? Okay, all these things are passion filled, but I'm also not being filled with passion on the other end of it. And I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm kind of a little stale right now, but like every mentoring meeting and whatever else, I'm like, dude, this was awesome. So happy for this. But like, okay, creativity, I need you right now because you need to create something. Where are you? And you're not there.
And then just like drained. And I think like the hardest part for me is finding that balance of like, okay, I know I have to go out and do these things. Like, I always like the Mark Twain quote, like, eat a frog first thing in the morning, and that'll be the hardest thing you do all day. And so it was like, wake up, go out and exercise, because like I've just learned like how I start my day is indicative of like the type of attitude I have throughout the rest of it. So it's like, if I take care of the things that I know I need to go out and take care of, then I can come back and like kind of relax on some of the other things. But also it's like, it's strange. It's like, oh, go exhaust yourself by working out and you're going to have more energy. Like, no, that makes no logical sense, but it is 100% reality. Like, I feel more energized after I work out throughout the course of the day than if I just like wake up and come to work and get on my computer and start editing videos. And so I have to like push myself to do the things that I know that are difficult for me, that benefit me, because those are the weird little things that give me the type of like mental confidence to do more things in life. Because like when I've read my Bible this week, it's only been after days that I was in the gym, because I don't listen to music. I just will either listen to an audiobook or I'll do it in silence and just my thoughts and like prayers. And, you know, there's been a lot of other things kind of going on with friends and family doing different things. So the more that I'm engaged physically, I realize the more I'm able to engage in other aspects of my life that I actually feel connected to.
Yeah. I was looking at just the thought of like, right, your cup can only be filled so much. And then you're using your cup to pour out into other people all day long. And you can only pour out as much as you have in there. So it's just like, if you're constantly running yourself ragged and dragging it out and not being refilled yourself, you can't pour out on other people. So you have to find these outlets. Like, man, I so need somebody to pour into me right now. You know, like the reality of it, like how many guys could, I don't think I've ever even said that before. Like the reality of it, like I genuinely need somebody to pour into me in this time period right now because of all the balls that I'm juggling with Field and Faith, and now stepping out this 18 over and starting to mentor guys, not even having the program up and running yet, but just the feeling the obligation because guys are like, hey, are you doing this yet? And I'm like, sure, let's do this, and it's just kind of feeling that obligation and like doing all the graphic stuff, doing all the website, doing all the sales stuff, doing all the meetings, doing all the social media, which is a nightmare to do. Like, man, I'm beaten up and I'm tired and there's not enough time in the day. But I need to be filled myself. And I know if you're listening, you need to be filled too. You can only give so much.
Yeah. And like, that's a hard thing to admit, man. Like, that's genuinely a really difficult thing because I think like society once again has told us like, oh, you're always supposed to be on top of your A game. You're not supposed to show weakness. You're not supposed to do anything like that. So like to actually genuinely admit that puts us in a very vulnerable place of like, I need something else. And you mentioned it earlier, both your wife and my wife. My wife has always said like, if you need to go, go. And like, that's unique. There's not a lot of wives who are like that, but they also understand like we come back, I think, genuinely better, even though we might walk back into the chaos. But we generally walk back better because there is that part of us that communes with God out on these things. Because it's like, you're not talking to me, I'm not talking to you, because we're trying to be quiet on an elk hunt, but we're also in our heads, like just kind of praying, thinking, contemplating life. Like, it's a weird thing. Like, for a man, I think silence is that great negotiator that you now get to self-reflect, because most of the time it's just head down, buckled, do whatever the task is in front of you. But being out in the woods, being out there fishing is what's going to be great.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you said that because like during this hunting season, I was out a lot and mostly in the mornings and just not even realizing it, but watching every single sunrise that popped up is so life-giving to me. But at the same time, not even realizing it and that I was even doing it, but every time that sun would hit me in the face, like that first light that popped up, I would start praying. And like not even intentionally doing it, but just being like, wow, God, like, thank you. Like, I just got to witness this. How many Joe Schmoes out there right now are driving to work and not even paying attention to this or appreciating this or realizing that, hey, you don't get all of these and you're only going to get so many of these. Yeah. But wow, I get to sit on a mountain right now. I'm staring at a bunch of deer and I have the sun hitting me and I'm getting to appreciate this and like just the overwhelming feeling of the silence and nature and all that stuff that goes along with it. It was really cool to be able to experience that and like realize that and just be like, well, I'm actually genuinely thankful. Like that's something I struggle with, of being genuinely thankful and actually showing it. But my body just going, I understand this. My spirit understands this and is like, yeah, do it, because you're going to do it whether you want to or not. It's just going to come out because your spirit's like groaning to say thank you.
Well, I don't think a lot of people know this. I mean, why would they? But the sunrise effect is an interesting thing, and I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but the
3 days in a row.
What?
3 days in a row, I'm testing this theory
of being
the first light,
like being outside.
I sat on my roof yesterday. Me and Maddie actually sat on the roof and took in the sun for like 10 minutes.
Interesting, because like the rays are different.
Yeah, because the red, yellow, and white come through because they're longer wavelengths. Yeah, I did the research because I'm very curious about this.
Yeah, and so that is a really unique thing. So between sunsets and sunrise, for photography, it's called like golden hour. But that impact on your body also is greater. So it's like if you're able to be outside and expose your flesh, your skin, to those different types of wavelengths, it provides a greater sense of urgency, energy. There's a bunch of science behind it. It's really cool.
Wasn't it like I'm probably wrong. It's like called the Arcadian complex or something, where it's like your internal clock. So it actually regulates your body better because you're knowing when the sun is going up and the sun is going down, so you get better sleep and all that kind of stuff. I will tell you this, 3 days in a row of sitting outside at that very first light, I have never had more freaking energy in my life. It's insane. And I drink like 2 cups of coffee a day, and I like different times of the day. I haven't been doing my second cup because I haven't needed it for the last 3 days. I did it this morning. I'm bolt of lightning.
You're jazzed. You're jazzed. That's good, man. Yeah, and like those are those weird things that like, I know other people who do like the ice baths in the morning, just again, do that hard thing. Yeah, it sucks waking up before the sunrise. I mean, what's going to really struggle for you is when it becomes summertime, but also it's the only time during the day that you want to be outside. So,
Well, so here's this, right? And this probably has zero anything and theology, right? Nothing. But like this morning while I was sitting out there and taking that first light, I was like, what if in scripture when it says joy comes in the morning, was there actually the scientific approach to this, that being out there in the morning in that first sunlight, like that was the scientific aspect of why like God intended for that specific phrase of the whole sunlight, that first sunlight being so much beneficial for you than regular sunlight. Right? There's no theology or anything behind that, but like there's so many things tied to science in the Bible and scripture that like just baffle me that are in there. And so like just for that, something like that, like joy is going to come in the morning, like, okay, cool. I like this.
I'll buy it.
Yeah, I buy it.
Yeah, and even as we're just like talking about it, I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, maybe there are more things that I need to be doing, but again, it comes at the cost of how do I implement this? And for a father of 3 kids, I like what you said there. I brought Maddie out there with me. I think for our kids, a lot of the times we have to also engage them into the same practices that we need in order to feel alive. And, it might be something that they struggle with in the beginning. But, I mean, I think every kid is going to complain about anything you ever try to include them in the beginning until they recognize the benefit of what it actually does for them. And like anything else, I think it goes back to, I think it's like an ancient Hebrew teaching, like where the Jews used to give kids honey while they would read the word.
Just to keep the energy going.
Well, not to keep the energy going. It was like taste and see that God's word is good. And like I brought that up to my Jewish kids at the school and they're like, oh yeah, we still do that. And so when they're first learning, they get these sticks and they'll like lick the sticks as they're like reading the word so that their brain has an association with God's word that when you're reading it, it's good, it's life-giving. Just because, I mean, the healing properties of honey back in the day and even today have just exponentially gone into different aspects. But I just find that interesting. It's like, oh, you need to taste and see. It's not necessarily something that people are jumping out, at 6 a.m, willing to go out and do, but expose yourself to it. Take your dog for a walk, do the extra thing that you need to do in order to like take those things in, because I love what you said is like our days are numbered. You don't know how many of these you're going to get.
And what's cool about the honey thing too is like, I mean, this is just what popped in my head, but like the word of God is forever and everlasting. Honey doesn't go bad either. Like that's the only thing in the world that doesn't go bad. Or like ferment, you know what I mean? Like you add water to it, it'll ferment, but like they found honey from thousands of years ago in jars. It's still good.
Oh yeah. I
Like
think you said hunting.
No, honey,
like
honey.
I was
Yeah.
like hunting. I mean,
Hunting never goes bad, Chris.
Corpses rot.
Hunting will last
Can't
forever.
find the elk after you shoot it. It's coyote meat.
But then the other piece of that, I will say, I did not invite Maddie to the roof.
Oh.
I went and climbed on the roof, and then, of course, she heard me walking and came out, and I could have easily told her no. But I saw the opportunity because I knew. Yeah, I was like, man, I just wanted this alone time to be able to pray and take in the sun. I was like, all right, she'll appreciate this. So she's at that age where, so I was like, all right, I'll help you up.
Did you just like slap the root like ladder on the side of the roof or what?
Yeah, dude, of course. Yeah, and then Parker got on it later and like fell off. So
of course,
because I didn't put it away right away.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, instead of ending with a hunting story, why don't you discuss the future, kind of this mentoring thing? Because we haven't talked too much about it. I'm hearing these for actually the first time. What you've been doing with these young men and kind of the new direction for another aspect of Field and Faith.
Yeah, it was something that's put in my heart. Initially it just kind of seemed like we were going to run this program for all men, all ages, but the reality of that and the dangers and liabilities, so we kind of shut off the all ages things when we started. But the reality was, like, I knew there was something more, and I saw the vision for it of like this all men community of, surrounding each other, and just the reality of like how many guys were approaching me going, man, I feel like I need to do this. And after sitting down with like multiple guys, and like the same thing is real for each one of them. They all have a desire to be better as men. They all have a desire to be a good husband and a good father, which if they are, they're not there yet, or they want to be a father, right? They're wanting to get to that point. They've had issues with their own fathers, so they don't fully understand that relationship, or even that full dichotomy of father to son from our Heavenly Father to us. And then two, they want to be around other guys. And just realizing that, like, dude, we have such a unique bond of our friends group. And the reality is there's so many guys out there that just go to work every day and then they go home and watch TV, and they don't have a close group of friends. Or if they do, they're in other states. And so they're not actually getting any daily or even weekly or monthly interaction, like being with the guy. And then on top of that, our society has just moved away from the outdoors. So fathers and grandfathers have gotten too busy and working and building themselves up that they've forgotten to take their kids out and do all these things. So guys are realizing and understanding who they are as men. They don't fully understand it, but they know that there's a sinking in a hole inside of them that Christ has given them, that they are supposed to be in the outdoors, engaging as creation in creation to be closer to the Creator. And they're wanting to do these things because they know it's part of their DNA. They don't understand it, but they know they need to be a part of it. And so being able to facilitate that, and I was like, all right, well, let me build this out and figure out, and we'll put together the program and whatever. And it's just like, okay, there's too many guys asking for this that I can't let this one slide, and I'm just going to do it. And man, I've met with a few guys, and I've never been more excited to be able to work with dudes and like just see the heart for the community, for Phoenix. I mean, just like to build up other men and to build up themselves, and just like to engage into a new level of biblical principles,
It's great.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about it and just kind of like understood. And I think the opportunity is, of course, like, with kids, they're going to be in school. You're not pulling them out of school to go do these like mentoring sessions, because you also know the value of their education and how they need to be in school to kind of facilitate that part of their life. But with like older people, it's like, man, a lot of guys have the opportunity to go out to lunch or do some other stuff during the day. Or I remember like young people, it's like a lot of them work the weekend. So they have like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off type schedule. And so I think it's great, man. I think the new avenue kind of puts into perspective different facilities, because so many of young men missed out on that opportunity when they were young, like I did. I mean, I never picked up a gun, really shot it until I was in my mid-20s, never hunted until I was in my 30s. And so it's those passions that I now have that I'd be like, oh man, could have been a lot more gathering of guns if I had just started this earlier, type of mentality. And they would have been a lot cheaper back then.
Well, just imagine too, your spiritual walk, and like within even our friend group, if like everybody was out doing all this stuff more with each other,
yeah,
like how tight would we be? How good would your relationship with God be? Like if you started all that stuff sooner,
yeah,
and how much more of an impact would you be making on the world too? On top of that, So
yeah, because I think for a lot of our guide trips, we've tried putting stuff together like fishing trips. Hey, we're gonna go out and do this. Hey, we're gonna go out and do that. And like, I think most of the guys are like, oh, I need that.
Yeah, it's no longer Vegas trips. We're going on fishing.
Yeah. Hey, we're not going to go to Las Vegas or, go to concerts. You guys just want to go sit on a creek bed and just like throw some lines into the water and hope we catch something.
Dude, I would do anything for a good fire in the forest.
Yeah.
Just doing that alone is, yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. And if you got any other things that you guys are doing, to kind of offset that lukewarmness, hit us up on Instagram. Check us out at fieldandfaith.org.
Social media at fieldfaith.org. And yeah, we're out there and about.
Yeah. And we're a 501c3. And we also do tax credit donations and stuff like that. So if you ever are looking to do your taxes up until, it's like April, right?
Until April. Yeah, go to our website. There's an additional tax credit for your state taxes. Check it out. It is dollar for dollar beneficial. So Do not wait until April 15th.
Yeah, and if you're going to pay something, at least pay it to an organization rather than God knows where the money's going to go if you give it to the government. I mean, they've been spending that money oh so well.
Oh, it'll go to Ukraine this way.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, guys, have a good one.
See ya.